make sure you test this on something that you don't really care about. Test this on a small swatch of your carpet. Don't use it on anything that you really, really value, because if you do and it doesn't go well, you're going to wreck that thing. I would say that's a good measure for certainty and uncertainty as well. Try it on something that isn't high stakes.
Is it actually dangerous, or is it all in your head? Asking that guy or that girl on a date is not actually dangerous. Hot air balloon is actually dangerous. So it makes sense not to go when there's bad weather. But what if most of the time the bad weather is just in your head and in your fears?
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was episode number 1277, 2 of the most powerful words you can say to yourself today. For episode number 1278, are you more certainty-driven than you think? I remember Alan and I, this was before we reconnected, I think. I think this is one of the pillars to us reconnecting. One of my buddies said, hey, myself and a group of our kind of distant friends, not best friends, like one friend group separated. Every year, we go do this camping trip down at Cape Cod, Massachusetts. You should come this year, brother. This is what my buddy said to me. And I was like, I don't think I will. I don't think I want to do that. And he's like, no, you got to, man. Like, you got to meet, you're going to re-meet a bunch of people you haven't seen in a long time. You'll meet new people. It's going to be great. We're going to have drinks on the beach. It's going to be a blast. And I remember thinking to myself, I need to know who's going. I need to know when we're leaving. I need to know where we're staying. I need to know who I'm staying with. I need to know everything. Like, I need the itinerary. I need to know everything. And he actually told me, or you told me later, you said, yeah, your buddy actually was worried you weren't going to go. He was like surprised you actually went because he knew how certainty driven you were, and he knew how uncertain that experience was for you. That's one of my thoughts behind doing this episode. Is I think about that, and I was very, very, very certainty driven. What does certainty driven mean? It means you require a high level of, I could say certainty, obviously, understanding, I guess. You want to know the details. Maybe you're not somebody who just makes a plan and goes after it. Maybe you're somebody who says, I need to know what's the weather going to be like. I need to know what's the dress attire. That's something big for me. When Taryn and I go out to dinner, I have to know what is the attire. Like, what am I supposed to wear? I don't want to show up in sandals and khakis when you're supposed to have like collared shirt, button up, a tie. Like, I need to know. So there are still times where I am certainty driven, but I also realize for a lot of my life that held me back, because the lessons for us, for most of us, they're in the uncertainty. If you know everything about the thing you're going to do, there's probably not a lot of room for growth and a lot of room for lessons. So my goal in this episode is to get you to look at uncertainty and certainty a little bit different and ask yourself a simple question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how certainty driven am I? And this is the example I'll use before I kick it to Alan. It's very hard to plan your future when you are skating on thin ice. That's certainty. If you're uncertain on whether or not the ice is going to hold you, it's very hard for you to plan your life. It's very hard to have a meaningful conversation. It's very hard to focus. It's very hard to learn. It's very hard to study, whatever. So that's a good example of what in a situation of uncertainty is. Okay, real quick. 9 p.m. and we're recording this, so I don't have much left, so I'm going to be a little bit giggly, but we're gonna get through. We always do.
So this is an interesting thing that just happened, and it's very appropriate.
Oh boy.
Because, Kev, this happened when you opened the episode. And if anyone's on YouTube, they'll see this, because I was very uncertain at the beginning of this episode visually, even though I was not on the mic. So those of you listening, you don't know this, but I was like checking my pockets.
Oh, I saw that.
Really deeply. You did notice? Mm-hmm. I can't find my Oura ring.
Oh my goodness.
So I always have an Oura ring, and I always have it on my finger when we record. And at this moment, I am genuinely uncertain of where my Oura ring is, because when I wash my hands, I'll usually put it in one of my pockets, and I just checked both my pockets, and so I'm freaking out. No, I'm not freaking out. My point is that I'm very uncertain in this moment of where my Oura ring is. And I value that very, very much. And so where I want to take this episode is how much uncertainty can you handle in a given moment? And what if I allowed that to stop me from recording this episode? What if I said, Kev, nope, can't do this episode, gotta go find my Oura Ring. And then 50 minutes went by, I finally found it, and then I said, Kev, we gotta jump back on the mic. It's 9:50 p.m. And you'd have been like, no. And then we would have missed an episode. Now, obviously we would have probably pivoted and recorded tomorrow or whatever. But the point is that how much certainty do you need to take that next step forward? And I think that everyone has a certain degree of what they call risk tolerance, which is and we talked about this recently on a different episode, but Kevin has a fairly low risk tolerance when it comes to certain things. I would say that you need a lot of certainty. You want to know, how planes work before you get on them. You want to know where the Airbnb is, and you want to see the inside and the outside, and you want to know if there's parking. Whereas with me, I don't even really care that much about that stuff, to a detriment, genuinely to a detriment, because then when we get there, it's a mess. So where do you fall on this spectrum? Are you someone who is so certainty driven they can't really think a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks out? Are you someone who's so certainty driven that maybe any uncertainty makes you reluctant to try? Because we couldn't have been certain that the first podcast episode was going to go well. You can't be certain that your first speech is going to go well. You can't be certain that next, I actually have someone who reached out to me last night. She said, oh my God, I just went on this super aligned date. I think this is the most aligned date I've ever had. And I was like, okay, awesome. If she was so certainty driven that she was so scared to give that a shot, she would never find out what's on the other side. And I think that that's really what happens, is we hold ourselves back. I'm not certain I'm going to be able to afford that. I'm not certain that I'm going to be able to handle myself in that interview. I'm not certain I'm going to get the job, so why even apply? I'm not certain that I'm going to be able to, I'm not certain that person's not going to reject me, so I'm not even going to try. And I think that if we look back to the last episode about decisions and choices, and this is the question that I have written down, where might certainty still be holding you back? Because in the last episode, we analyzed how the power of one choice, Kevin going to the mall with Amy, or Kevin having me as his first guest on his show, or insert choice that made a massive difference long term. If you're super certainty driven, how many chances are you not taking that might have changed everything? And whether you didn't go to that event with Brendan Burchard, or you and I living in Florida never would have happened. And I do think that in hindsight, this is very clear, Kev. You had certainty in us probably more than you had certainty in just you.
For sure.
And I think it's important to analyze what might have been without that certainty. And
I do.
Okay,
I do.
What's your frame on that regarding, because the new you has a lot more certainty than you used to.
For sure.
About, belief in yourself, belief that it's going to work out. Even if it doesn't work out, you believe in failing forward, and you believe that everything is figure-outable within reason. The old Kev didn't believe in that stuff, at least not to this extent. So how do we help people get there?
Yeah, I think it's really the fact that you can be certain that you are capable of flourishing in uncertainty. That for me is like that's what the problem is, right? Because it's almost like, I've used this example before. When I used to go to the beach, I would literally Google what time does the beach open, because I want to make sure I don't miss parking. I don't want to have to wait in line. I want to get there and I want to get a parking spot immediately. Like, that's something I think about. But you kind of have to turn that off and say, well, this is going to be an experience, and no matter what happens, I'm going to learn something. That you almost have to like let go of the guardrail. You have to take the training wheels off and say, okay, yeah, I want this. Goal A is for me to face this fear and this discomfort. Goal B is to have a joyful experience. And it's almost like you have to be willing to take an L on that front. I think that helped me a lot, where there are certain things I will never, like when it comes to finding an Airbnb or something like that, I am hyper focused on certainty, because that's not a place to be uncertain, right? But when it comes to a restaurant, you can be uncertain about what's on the menu. What's the problem? Maybe you won't find something you like. Maybe you'll try something new. That's cool. Right now, you'll be certain you like that. If it's an experience, if it's a date, if it's a job, I think there are certain things that it's very important to be very certain about, especially things that are long term. I think if you're going to practice flexing the uncertainty muscle, it's something that's very short term. A meal, a movie, a route to work. I think those are simple ones. Those are simple ones. I was talking to somebody recently. I don't know if it was about podcasting. I don't remember what it was, but somehow podcasting got brought up because that's usually what I talk about. And it was something along the lines of, sometimes we don't really know what we're going to talk about. Like, there's a level of uncertainty, but we've done that enough times where that uncertainty, there's confidence in the uncertainty that we're probably going to figure it out. Yeah. Eventually, I think you can get to that point where, when I went to PodFest, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know if I was going to know anybody, but it was that level of like, you're going to be okay by yourself. Like, there's a lot of uncertainty here, but you're certain you're a podcaster and you're certain you know your podcasting stuff. And here's the other thing. I'm certain that I'm really good at meeting people and making friends. Okay, cool. That brings some certainty to the uncertainty. So yeah, I think test it on if you've ever gotten like a cleaning product, it says, make sure you test this on something that you don't really care about. Test this on a small swatch of your carpet. Don't use it on anything that you really, really value, because if you do and it doesn't go well, you're going to wreck that thing. I would say that's a good measure for certainty and uncertainty as well. Try it on something that isn't high stakes.
And I just wanted to share a little bit about my experience of Next Level Live in 2022. I've been to a lot of live events before, and there's nothing quite like this group of people in this community that these guys have cultivated. The intimate feeling that you get in the group. Yes, there's a lot of people, but there's not so many people that it's overwhelming. I actually attended this event completely by myself last year, but I also felt right at home when I got into the room. If you've been following these guys on the podcast and you do their monthly meetups and things like that, I have to say there is nothing quite like actually getting in the room and being surrounded by the energy that these guys bring to the table. So if you are on the fence about attending Next Level Live 2023, I highly encourage you to do so. You are going to get so much out of the experience, and you are going to be so grateful that you did.
So I was on the phone with a client, Kev, and I told you I was going to say this because I've told you this story before. And I said that success is a lot about mathematical certainty more than people realize. And then I was like, okay, state and prove. So there's the statement. Awesome. Okay, what do you mean? What are you even talking about? I said, this person I'm coaching lives in north of me, and I know that there's a Subway near this person's house. And so I said, 0 to 10, how certain are you that you can get Subway for dinner tonight? Subway subs. Delicious. She's like, 10. I said, okay. Here's what your brain just did unconsciously. I'm certain there's a Subway nearby. I'm certain Subway is a thing, first of all. I'm certain that I can go there, drive there, because I have a car and I know how to drive a car. I'm certain my credit card will work. I'm certain that they take credit cards there. I'm certain that I can drive back, and I'm certain that I can eat. I know how to eat. There was a time in her life when she was a little baby when none of that was possible. She had no certainty that she could eat Subway that night. And I said, okay, now I want you to imagine a hypothetical world where Subway doesn't exist. And you don't have a car, and you don't have a credit card that works, and you're not certain it's going to work, and you're not sure that you're going to make it there on your bike. And even if you do make it there, you think your credit card's going to get rejected. What are the chances you go to Subway tonight? The chances are 0. There's too much uncertainty. And so what I was trying to portray in this coaching call, I really want to get across right now. What if the successes you want in life are possible? Mathematically speaking, they're totally doable. People have done those very things. Maybe not everything, right? You're not going to be an Olympic gold medalist swimmer on a whim. That's not what I'm talking about here. But when it comes to some of your goals and dreams, what if they really are possible? but maybe you just don't know the equation yet.
Mm.
Or maybe your brain has too much uncertainty, meaning like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to drive a car. I don't know if I'm going to be able to use my credit card. I don't know if I even like Subway, right? There's too much uncertainty. And so you don't believe in yourself, so you don't try, which then fulfills more uncertainty. So you end up stuck. Whereas if you just gave it a shot, you'd probably end up there and you'd be eating Subway and you'd be like, okay, what else can I do? And I know it sounds overly simplistic, but that's what self-belief really is. It's, I'm going to give this a shot and I'm going to see how it goes. And then I'm either going to believe in myself a little more or a little less based on how well it goes. But if you presuppose that it's not going to work, or you allow your subconscious fears to like take you over and stop you from even trying, you're never going to get evidence to the contrary. And so the very last thing I'll say, Kev, is you were going to go on a hot air balloon for your honeymoon.
Oh, God.
And the reason they called you up and said you can't go is because the weather is too uncertain.
Hmm.
And so I think that's what happens. That's what our fears do. We are going to do this thing. We're going to start this podcast, or we're going to do this speech, or we're going to write this book or this blog, or we're going to track our habits, whatever. And all of a sudden we get that call from our fears of the weather is too uncertain, you can't go. And we listen instead of, you know what? This isn't a hot air balloon. Worst case scenario, I get laughed at the speech, but I'm not going to die, right? I'm actually going to probably be pleasantly surprised with how well it goes and then bomb my next speech like Kevin did. Just joking. But that's the thing, right? And so how much uncertainty can you handle? And here's the real question. Is it actually dangerous, or is it all in your head? Asking that guy or that girl on a date is not actually dangerous. Hot air balloon is actually dangerous. So
yeah, definitely.
It makes sense not to go when there's bad weather. But what if most of the time the bad weather is just in your head and in your fears?
I'm not proud of this. I'm not ashamed of this. I guess I'm embarrassed of this. When I would go on dates with people, I had to have the level of certainty that they knew how tall I was. That was like a thing for me. I'd always find a way to like bring that up in conversation. I had to be certain. Imagine if I go on a date and I end up seeing somebody that's like 6'1", like Alan. Like, have you ever seen pictures of Alan and I hugging at events? You know, that would be terrifying. I was terrified of that. But at some point, you just have to say like, what's Alan's point? What's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? You know, I know you want to
one of those tippy toe hugs.
Tippy toe hugs, yeah. This is really what I think it is, though. It's almost like you're not necessarily uncertain of whether or not you can do it. You're uncertain of whether or not you can handle it if things don't go to plan.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the interesting thing but you never get the certainty until you do the thing and then things kind of go unplanned. You become a better speaker when you mess up. Because when you mess up, you know how to say like, okay, need to restart the momentum here, or how do I play off the fact that I completely forgot what I was going to say? That. I don't know if you can, I won't say you can't win because I don't want to say it like that. You're definitely holding yourself back if you're letting your fear of uncertainty win. You're missing out on so many opportunities. And because you're missing out on those beginning opportunities, you're missing out on what those opportunities would bring to you eventually. And I would say one of the things that I have pivoted the most, thanks to having mentors and people around me like Alan and having opportunities and facing my fears, is I am way less certainty driven than I've ever been. I literally sent a message today, an email to a podcast event in London. And like, I don't even know where this is in London. I have no idea. I have no clue how many people are there. I don't know. But I sent a message and said, hey, I saw you have an event. I'd love to speak. They're already filled up, so they're booking for next year, so maybe next year. But I wouldn't have done that 2 years ago. Just did it on my own. Like, am I going by myself? Would Tyron go with me? I don't know. Whatever. Like, I'll figure that out later. That's definitely something that's helped me a lot, because it's almost like it allows you to extend the leash. In some way, shape, or form, we're all kind of tethered to something. It's just how much of the rope, how much of the string are you willing to let out? That's kind of certainty versus uncertainty.
This came up for me when you were talking. I know we got to jump because it is 9:10 p.m. right now. And I think my DoorDash is actually here.
I'm jealous.
It's going to be numbins. That's what we call it. Numbins. It's delicious. Let me actually check and make sure we
got
good. Okay, we're good.
we got Instacart, but I think it was, I don't know, it might be here, but they said it might be 9:55, so we might not even get it tonight.
The person is on the way.
Nice.
Vanis, your dasher's name is Vanis. Vanis, I'm hoping you drive safely with the foods.
Bring the goods, Vanis.
With the goods, Vanis. So this came up for me. Very last thing I'll say, we'll go. I almost let uncertainty stop me from the greatest thing that I've ever experienced. And I'll tell the story briefly. Some of you have heard it. Emilia on her Facebook, when I first met her, had in a relationship still as her relationship status. And I looked, I did my research, I didn't see any guys. And I was so drawn to her, inexplicably drawn to her. And she had suggested some episodes for the show, and we had talked, DM'd back and forth. I think I wished her a happy birthday or vice versa. I forget, when we were in California. But I had DM'd her 3 separate times saying, true or false, are you in a relationship? And I unsent the DM 3 separate times because I was so uncertain about whether or not she was single. And eventually it was a Friday night, and I just got sick and tired of unsending the message, and I just said, you know what, man, just send the damn message. True or false, are you in a relationship? She responds, actually quite quickly, which was awesome. She actually ended up being with Bianca at the time, which was cool. They were watching Lion King, my favorite movie, which is also interesting. I'm alone at Impact on a Saturday night, miserable. I think it was Friday night. But anyways,
impacts the gym for those
Impact
who don't know.
Fitness, yeah, Impact Fitness. Shout out, great gym. But anyways, so she responds and she says, yes, relationship with myself. And after that, we were just inseparable is an understatement, which I'm so grateful for. And then Kev, you met her like 5 days later, and it was like we were married.
When did I meet her first? At your birth?
It was at Amy D's place by the lake.
Oh, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it wasn't Thanksgiving though.
It wasn't Thanksgiving? I think it
maybe
was.
It was. But
you showed up fashionably late with some sort of
pies.
dessert dish. Yeah.
Mini pies. That was not the first time you met her. We had all hung out and we played that deep question card game together.
I thought that was Thanksgiving. Okay.
No, that wasn't.
I will.
Thanksgiving,
you have a better memory than I. I'll fold to you.
All good, brother. It was also one of the best experiences ever because that was the first time I got to introduce it. But we were only a week in, and everyone was like, "Okay, you guys are married now." So obviously we're not married, but anyways, the point is that uncertainty of whether or not she had a boyfriend almost kept me from sending that message. So what might uncertainty still be holding you back from? And question that at very least. And to Kevin's point, it's not about never having uncertainty. Life is uncertain. It's about, do you have certainty that you can handle it?
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad we did this episode. Again, you never know. You never know where the episode's going to go. Sometimes I have one story, Alan has one story. Sometimes I don't even have a story, Alan doesn't have a story. So it's always good when an episode kind of goes full circle like this one did. Next Level Nation. If you are local in the Worcester, Boston, New England area, and you would like to meet Alan and I and members of the Next Level U team and other amazing members of the community, please join us April 1st, 2023, Worcester, Mass for Next Level Live. We are super excited for this. We're going to treat it kind of like a large group coaching session where, yes, we'll be on stage, but we're going to be down in the audience with you, and we're going to kind of have 3 separate groups where we'll kind of coach you in between. It's going to be awesome. We're very excited. And again, I do believe that one of the biggest needs for our audience is community and belonging. And if you have not yet found that place where you belong, please join us because I promise you will.
We call it the GER groups, green, yellow, red. And by we, I've actually never told Kevin that before.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The GER groups. There's going to be the green group, the yellow group, and the red group.
What if you
did
did
blue group will be the NLU team.
What if you did GRY? Would that make more sense?
Yeah, probably.
Green, red, yellow.
I like GER.
Okay.
Man, I like GER.
Okay.
So I want to shout out this person. If you're out there listening, this is your testimonial of group coaching. This is a group coaching member, but I will keep it anonymous. She said, and I quote, "My takeaway is that awareness is powerful. You don't know what you don't know until you learn it, and you can't change what you aren't aware of. So it's important to stay curious about yourself, your relationships, and your community/the world. My biggest improvement through group coaching has been tracking my finances. It's a goal I set back in September, and this gave me the push and the tools that I needed to track in a way that isn't complicated. So again, that's just one testimonial of one of the group members. And really what group coaching is going to get you on some train tracks with some direction with some other people to support you along the way. If you are interested, group coaching closes on April 4th. The link will be in the show notes. Please reach out to Kevin or myself. For listeners of this show, we do have a 30% discount code that we can give you if you reach out. Alan at nextleveluniverse.com or Kevin at nextleveluniverse.com.
What do you think we get out of here?
Yeah, man, it's time. I got
food.
my dasher. My dasher is 3 minutes away.
Oh, this is perfect. Taryn said she was going to cook me up something. She's very sweet. She knows the long nights are a challenge. All right, let's get out of here. Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1279. Why are you in the relationships you're in? Alan brought something to me recently, and I feel like that will be a very powerful episode. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out. I swallowed some water the wrong way. Please reach out.